Hello, everyone. This is another episode in which I interview an expert from the industry. Today, I am interviewing a very nice guy, very sweet person, and a very knowledgeable person, my mentor, Mr. John Spence. We'll be talking about business presentations. So, without wasting any time, let's start with the interview. How are you, sir?
I'm very well today. How are you, sir?
So, please do not call me sir, and I'm very well too.
No, it's quite fair. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm very well. Sir, when we talk about different types of presentations, it can be a speech in at a funeral, maybe.
Mhm.
It can be a speech at school, a business presentation, or a normal workshop like you conduct in your day-to-day business. There are many similarities because the rules of communication, the principles of communication remain same. But in every type of presentation, every type of speech, there are some differences. So what is the difference between other speeches and a business presentation? What makes a business presentation different from other types of presentations?
Well, in my opinion, a business presentation has a specific outcome you're trying to reach. Am I trying to convince or persuade or sell, whatever it might be? So there's a tangible outcome. We want someone to make a decision, make a purchase, do something like that. The process you get there might be through storytelling or persuasion or anecdotes or presentation of data. But I want a specific outcome at the end of a business presentation. Whereas other ones, it might just be to tell a story, to be funny, to, as you would say, reflect back on the importance of someone's life. I don't need a decision made there.
So to conclude, we have an outcome in mind when we talk about business presentation. That's what makes it different. So you must have seen so many business presentations. You must have given hundreds of business presentations. What is the worst and what is the best way to start a business presentation? Because starting is everything.
Okay, the worst way is to start with humor if you're not funny. To try to tell a joke if you're not a funny person. That's the worst way to give any presentation, is to start off with something that may or may not work well. So in most presentations, business presentations, I use what's called the 3 T's. Tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them what you told them. In other words, here's what I plan to cover today. I've got these 4 items. They're all important. And at the end of presentation, I'd like you to help make this decision on the project or do this or whatever. Then do the presentation, typically no more than 3 major points, 3 top things, and then summarize everything quickly and say, so I've covered these 3 things. Here's the decision I need, or here's the action I'd like you to make a purchase. So tell them what you're going to tell them is a nice way to start it off, so they know what to anticipate, how long you're going to be presenting, and what you're asking them to do, so that as you're presenting, they can be thinking in their head, okay, how do I make this decision? What am I going to move forward based on this new data or information he's delivering? How do I, am I being convinced or persuaded to make a different decision?
Now we talk about data. When finance department is presenting, maybe in front of the CEO or someone like that, or maybe in front of another company who is partnering with them, or sales department is giving a presentation, there are lots of numbers included in that presentation. And that presentation becomes boring. This is a very common sight, that you are presenting in front of the CEO and you hear the sounds of CEO snoring.
Yes, or on their phone.
Yeah, and sometimes they're like with open eyes and they're snoring.
Yeah. Very true.
Because a presentation with numbers, lots of numbers, has to be boring. So what can we do to make it a little interesting? Some tips and tricks.
So the first thing is to figure out what numbers you actually need to present. Some people get so excited about the data they've created that they want to present it all. Here's 57 slides that are full of numbers, and everyone's eyes gloss over, like you said, and they start to fall asleep. So you have to have enough discipline to say, although I might have massive data, it's really impressive, really there's only 4 pieces of data I truly need to present. So and then being able to tie that data, that information into the decision, into something that's important to the COO or the CEO. Is it about profitability? Is it about Is it about expansion? Is it about cost reduction? Is it about efficiency? Is it about whatever the workforce might be? But something that's a key focus for the people in the room, and then delivering only the data they need. And then typically what I recommend is put all the rest of it on a handout that you give at the end of the meeting. So they're not, unless they need to look through it. But again, if you hand out a bunch of data, a spreadsheet, and you're giving a talk, everyone is reading the data and they don't hear anything you're saying. So my experience has been, let me show you the key numbers here. I have 4 or 5 really key numbers. After the meeting, we'll give you a handout that goes into a lot more detail. And then the idea here too is give that main data, then ask for questions. What other information you need? And if it's your data and you're presenting it, you should know it really, really, really well. So if someone says, well, what were the third quarter earnings in India? You can look down quickly and go, well, we did 4.2 billion or whatever it might be, and here's what it came from. But being able to respond to that quickly without having all that data on the slide. Big slides with lots of information are useless.
My next question was about slides. So one of my favorite public speakers, David J.P. Phillips, he says PowerPoint is useless because PowerPoint was designed as an aid, but nowadays the presentations revolve around PowerPoint. PowerPoint is the main element of the presentation. And he says, do not use PowerPoint unless you necessarily have to use it, and use it as just to show images or some graphics as an aid. What are your views on PowerPoints? Because there was an incident. I was presenting, if people do not know, I am a mechanical engineer. So I was presenting about thorium-based nuclear energy, and my PowerPoint presentation did not include any crazy details or some crazy reactions. It had just some pictures. And I kept explaining those pictures because there is an 85 kg man standing there who is just to explain to you, why do you need to look at a PowerPoint?
Yeah.
And the feedback that I got is your presentation was not detailed. And I think some managers, especially low-level managers, can get this feedback from their superiors that you did not put the hard work in your presentation. It can be a very good presentation, but people are very used to seeing all those crazy numbers on the PowerPoint and all. So any views on that?
Yeah, I'm in David's camp of when I used to teach corporate communications years ago, we used presentations. We use a thing called the 5x5 rule, and I would get it down to 3x3, which is no more than 5 words and 5 lines per slide. I even think that's too much now. On my presentation, I use very, very high-end photography things with maybe 3 or 4 words on them. The only reason I use those is just to keep me on track. So I know the next point is. So it's really a script for me that I can look back. If I'm doing a business presentation to a CEO or a group, I keep my slides very clean, maybe 2 or 3 words or 1 word. And then if it's really important to keep their attention, let's say I'm going to put 1 slide up and I'm going to talk for 6 or 7 minutes about that slide. I just hit on the clicker to turn the screen blank, or you can go to the keyboard and hit B and it goes black, or W and it goes white. I'll just turn it off and talk for a couple of minutes and explain things, and then go back over and say, all right, let's look at the next slide, bam, and go there. But I'm a huge fan for it, unless you've got a mechanical drawing or I do have some numbers I have to present. Other than that, I just want just enough information to keep everybody focused and giving them the information verbally that they can write down and take notes, with the opportunity to say, I can send you the deck later, or I can send you a more in-depth overview later. But for now, let's just focus on the main things, the key things that are, and here's the idea, what's most important to the audience? What do they really need to know? Maybe if you're giving a technical presentation, you do need to have some drawings and numbers up there, but as few as possible and as well prepared as possible.
Understood. So, sir, I had only these many questions. This was a very short, very crisp, but a very knowledgeable, very insightful interview. Thank you so much for this interview, and thank you so much for the conversation. My audience would love it.
It's my honor. It's my pleasure. Thank you for asking me.